The way I got into real estate, guys, is I was sitting in the bar around 7 or 8 guys. It was attorneys, other restaurant owners, business owners, some people in politics, and they were talking about, hey guys, we should all put 5 grand in each, go buy this property, fix and flip it or rehab it, burr out of it. And I had no idea what they were talking about. I was a newbie, no idea. I'm just like, hey, these guys are smarter than me. They're probably making more money than me. Sure. I went home that night and I remember I just started doing research. I said, you know what? I'll go in with you guys. And when it came time to execute, everybody backed out. Nobody was willing to. But I had already done the research and I'm like, you know what? I'll just go for it.
This guest has navigated humble beginnings, including time as a child where he was actually homeless, to becoming nationally recognized as one of the top real estate and business minds in the country. In addition to owning over 100 units and multiple bars and restaurants, this guest is a business and life coach who has helped encourage both new and veteran entrepreneurs to improve and scale their businesses while also being a community leader in his hometown of West Virginia. His unique coaching style has awarded him the spotlight on many platforms, including Yahoo and Google, as well as being a 40 under 40 candidate. Most recently, he's earned awards for the Best New Business of the Year, as well as being an NAACP Champion of Change. We're so lucky to have Ray Glymph with us today to share his story, and I know everyone listening is going to come away with some absolute gems. Thank you so much, Ray, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for everybody for listening as well.
Yeah, man. So super excited to have you. I know a little bit about your background, done a little bit of research on you online, and having met you in person, I know kind of how you've gotten to get to where you are today. But maybe for those listening that don't know about your amazing story, kind of talk about early on what childhood was like for you, kind of pre all the success that you're seeing now.
Sure. Yeah. So we grew up very humble beginnings. My parents were married. I have 3 sisters and 2 brothers, so we had somewhat of a big family. We weren't well off. We, very humble, and but my parents provided as best as they could. They didn't really have the financial literacy to know about real estate investing or even investing as a whole. But my dad did have a good job, and unfortunately, after September 11th, we lived in Brooklyn, New York, and New York City as a whole had the recession after September 11th. It really affected the city. And in that point, my parents, they lost their jobs. And, we tried to find housing. We couldn't find, affordable housing at that point. And, we were forced to go into a homeless shelter. And I would think I was about like 11, 12, or 13. I just remember being in my adolescence, being in that homeless shelter. And I remember I spent one of my birthdays in there. And I told myself, man, if I ever got money, I would never go through this again. I would do whatever it takes to never go through this instance again. And I still remember like being in the shelter, man. Like I had all my stuff, all my belongings in a trash bag. And, one night we were sleeping and we come from a very clean family, but there were like roaches in the place and there were rats scratching at the wall. And it was kind of traumatizing as a kid, but I think it helped feed the beast and helped me become the person I am today.
Wow. That's an amazing story and something that, a lot of people may not be able to, take and have be part of their, background. It could be something that really hinders them for the rest of their life. What do you think it was about you in particular and about your family that, made you guys so resilient and made you able to withstand that and actually come out on the other side of that thriving?
I think it was the bottom, right? And the thing most entrepreneurs talk about and they give you the best stories are the stories of failure, right? That was the bottom of life for me at a certain extent. I never wanted to go through that. I never wanted my kids to go through that. I just didn't want to go through that period in life. And I took it as I'll do whatever it takes to not go through that. So I think when I was 13 or 14, I got my first job. I think I was washing dishes or I used to bag groceries, and that was always ingrained in my mind of, work, Ray, work, because you don't want to go back to where you were, and my whole life, my whole career, pretty much, I always maintained 2 jobs, 3 jobs. Before I went to school, I had 3 jobs and was going to school at the same time. So it's always been ingrained in me to be a hard worker.
Wow. Okay. So that explains a little bit about how you got your foot in the door, maybe in the restaurant industry and the business side of things there. Is that how you kind of worked your way up from an entrepreneurial perspective, starting with washing dishes and managing a restaurant and going from there?
Yeah, so I was actually I was in high school. I went to high school and we had to pick a trade. So I went for culinary arts,
Okay.
and I kind of got a good basis of the cooking industry. And I started in restaurant space. I think my first restaurant job was about 16, and it was under the table. The guy was awesome though. He trained me. He taught me so much in life. Taught me a lot about hard work. And I started as just somebody on a register. One day the cook didn't show, and he asked me to come in the back and help him. And I found that that was like a passion. It was a love of mine to be in the kitchen for a while. And I ended up working in the restaurant industry until I actually eventually purchased my first food truck.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And by the way, to everybody listening, like I didn't really have a lot of money to purchase that food truck either. Um, if you guys go to college, you get that reimbursement or that stipend. It was about $4,000 or $5,000. I took that stipend money. It's supposed to last me for the whole year. I took the stipend money. I went, bought a food truck for like $2,000 or $3,000. It was like worn down. We got it painted and fixed it and started selling tacos, late night tacos. And this was about maybe 9, 10 years ago.
Wow.
And I was going to school to be an industrial engineer. I remember at that time, and the average industrial engineer was making about 60,000 a year, right? And that's a full time job at that point. And I went out on the street on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I sold tacos for about 3 hours, and I was making about 60 grand a year. And at that point, I was like, I'm done with school.
Wow.
The entrepreneurial spirit was in me.
That's amazing. Yeah, I can relate. Just doing accounting, coming out of school in 2009, where it's like, trying to just make sure I was landing a job. But unfortunately, I didn't know, how many different opportunities there were out there for entrepreneurs in terms of like replacing a W-2 income. I thought 60 grand at the time, or 58 grand, which was my first starting salary, was like, that was the best that many of my friends or network were making. So I thought that was just like the best you can do. But yeah, as you found out early on, there's just so many ways, and now social media, and like there's so many just different ways that you can find those different opportunities and kind of be teed off to those. So that's cool. You were was that your first kind of entrepreneurial, I guess, you know?
Now, I'll tell you, man, it was always in me. So I remember I snuck out. I hope my parents don't listen to this, but I snuck out my parents' house one day. We lived right below a basketball court. We lived in, they call them the projects, 15th floor, 16th floor apartment building.
Yeah.
We lived right below a basketball court. And I filled up some water jugs and I took it to the basketball court. It's
No.
probably about like 6 or 7, man. And I took it down there and I made a sign that said water for 25 cents. And I sold water.
Wow.
I sold tap water to some basketball players that were downstairs. And that was kind of my first hustle. And then it became, I bought a Pac-Man machine. I think I bought it online on Facebook Marketplace, maybe like $200, and it was a quarter to play. I put it in a popular bar. I was making like I saw people playing it all the time. I opened it up, and I had made my first investment back in that first month. And it was at that point, it was like, man, I can make this passive income. I didn't know what passive income was at that time,
Yeah.
but I knew I was making money while I was, doing other things.
Right.
So it felt
Yeah, I look back on that, and you see people like selling couches, or like reselling cars, or magic cards, or whatever it is. Like, you kind of know, I think, when you're a kid, you don't know what that feeling is, or what that what exactly you've got going. But I think a lot of people have that when they're kids, and like it feels right. You just got to find a way to tap into that. And it sounds like through the restaurant industry initially, and then with that food truck, you were really able to start kind of building some of those skills in terms of operating a business, your P&L, how to price things. Um,
yeah. And I want to add this too, as you mentioned in that I didn't get those skills from school.
mhm.
Right. I actually got those skills. A lot of those skills came from me working those jobs. So I worked at Starbucks, great systems at Starbucks. I worked at McDonald's, great systems at McDonald's. There's nothing wrong with having a W-2 job,
Right.
right? You can learn so much from that. You can learn systems, you can learn development, you can learn branding. If you're an accountant, you can learn how to operate in a business and use that in your repertoire of what you want to do eventually.
Mhm.
Use it as a stepping stone.
For sure. Yeah, you definitely learn. I mean, even looking at my first time when I was, as a landlord, just house hacking and renting the bottom out, you learn so much just in terms of the paperwork and how much to take as a deposit, who to rent to and who not to, being careful with family and business, so many different things. So it sounds like you went to school for industrial engineering. You you started with the food truck, and then you kind of did you graduate or did you go?
No, I dropped out. I was in my second year and I dropped out. And I remember everybody told me, Ray, don't drop out, don't drop out.
Right.
And in my head, I was like, well, school's always going to be there. This is like a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Yeah.
And I did it, man. And I never looked back. Like I said, making 60,000 a year doing something that I didn't really want to do.
Yeah.
And then I had the opportunity to do this food truck, which is great. I was working maybe 12, 15 hours a week. I was making about the same money and doing like enjoyably making the same money.
Right.
And then eventually it became putting the systems in, hiring employees, and then I was able to transition to something else to provide other income. So
Yeah.
I never look back at what would have been
Yeah.
versus where I am now.
Yeah. And whereas alternatively, you probably would have, right, if you were still doing engineering and didn't follow your passion.
Yeah,
So how did you spin that food truck into, the multiple restaurants and bars and tell
yeah,
us a little bit about how you were able to scale and progress in those early years.
yeah. So actually, it's pretty cool. The food truck was doing amazing. I mean, it started to like I guess compete with the brick and mortar businesses, and it kind of created a conflict between the brick and mortars. And I get it now, being a landlord. But it created a conflict for the brick and mortar businesses, and this thing it blew up. It kind of went like national
Mm,
and even international.
dang.
We were featured on like the Ron Paul show. We were featured on several shows, um, and pretty much the thing was it was local government pushing out small business. And at that point, the food truck became kind of a hassle for me too, more regulation, and I actually had the opportunity to purchase my first bar. It was seller finance.
Oh, wow.
Before I knew what seller finance was, it was seller finance,
Yeah.
and I purchased my first bar, zero money down. I think I paid about 250,000 for it. So it was at that time to me, it was like this is another opportunity.
Yeah.
And when I bought it, they were doing about $700 a day, and I took it to on a good day they made it. They may have done like $1,000, and I took it to about like a 2,000. So we pretty much doubled what they were doing consistently.
Okay.
And after that, it was my first like real money, first time seeing real money. And coming from where I came, I didn't want to spend real money. So I saved every dollar, guys. Like I didn't travel, I didn't do much. I might have traveled once every 6 months, and I saved every dollar. And then I continued to invest in other businesses. So the nightclub next door to it became available. Pay for the nightclub next door,
Mm,
and then and this is all on the same street. And then across the street, a restaurant became available. I took the restaurant over, and before you know it, it was like Monopoly. Like I had all three, and I started to see like, man, I'm really making money through these businesses. It's amazing, and this is where real estate kind of took a play. Is that I was making money, but I was trading my time for money. And if you guys know the restaurant bar business, I was out every night.
mm,
So I was there physically. I had great systems, but I just wanted to be there. I felt like I had to be there. So I was there physically. And it cost me, time, relationships. It cost me a lot being there.
right.
Um, and at that point, I knew like if I want to scale and I want my freedom, I'm gonna have to figure out another way to create income while I sleep because
Yeah.
being out every night till 5 o'clock just isn't a great lifestyle.
Right. And that was like your like 20s, right? Like you were in your 20s having multiple successful businesses, staying up late
Yeah.
every night. Like that must have been a crazy time in your life for sure.
It was crazy. It was a party every night, man, and I wouldn't take it back, and I wouldn't change anything because it helped me again shape who I am today. Um, because here's the thing, like when it comes to like alcohol, people may not understand this, but when it comes to alcohol, my whole life I've had all you can drink pretty much. It feels like
Mm,
I can drink alcohol anytime. I just don't desire it
right.
because I have access to it.
Right.
You know, so the access to party is just not it's not in me anymore. I'd rather focus on things that bring me more joy.
Yeah. Do you think, you talked a little bit about, the importance of you saving and wanting to make sure you had the reserves in place. And you see so many people that have early success like you had in your 20s that kind of flame out or, it's too much too fast for them and they're not able to be mature enough to handle it. Do you think some of those experiences that you had early in life being homeless, having, seeing people lose jobs that are close to you and seeing how, quickly things can be taken away from you. Do you think that was a huge part of you?
A
Yeah.
100%. It's ingrained in me, and I had this conversation the other day. It's crazy because people ask me, "Hey, do you want to do this?" And it might be like 250, 300. To me, it's smaller money.
Yeah.
Maybe, hey, let's go spend 1,000 here, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that. But then if you're like, "Hey, Ray, I got this piece of property. It's 100,000. You want to buy it? Yeah, I'm all in." you
Yeah.
know, and so it's ingrained in me to spend money on investments. I spend money on fun, and I spend money on experiences
Yeah.
more than anything. If you ask for an experience and let's do something, I'm all game.
Right.
If you ask me to spend money on investment, I'm all game. But some of the mundane things that people spend, a lot of money on that are costly in the beginning and infancy stages, I tend to stay away from and shy away from. I could go buy a Lamborghini or a Ferrari. It's not what I need right now.
Right.
I'd rather go spend that on an investment.
Right.
Um, I could buy a second house. I don't need it right now. I'd rather go spend it on a second house that's an actual investment.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I am in my career. And right now, I've enjoyed the fruits of my labor, but I'm not in the party phase or the enjoyment phase right now. I'm
Yeah.
still growing. I'm in the growth phase.
Yeah, I'm completely the same way in terms of, it's hard for me to go buy like material things, but if I can find a deal on a property, it's like, I have no problem spending that money. My wife,
Yeah, yeah,
it can be tough on the family when they don't have quite. Sometimes they're like, come on, but long term, you got to think long term, and eventually, you can buy whatever you want as long as you are disciplined for that first few, years or even decades, because on the back
yeah.
end, that payoff.
And to everybody that listens, like my favorite word right now is delayed gratification. Favorite word is delayed gratification.
Yep.
Right? Do you need it now? What is it going to be worth in 5 years? Right?
Right.
The car I drive right now, the car you guys might be driving and listening to, probably a good car. Could you get a new car? Sure, but what's the technology, right? Why are you buying this car? Is it to show off to somebody else, or just because you really need it,
Right.
right? So at this point, my life is more focused on delayed gratification. I have a very enjoyable life. Kids are happy, my wife's happy, everybody's happy. I can't complain.
For sure. So you mentioned, after you had those first few restaurants, or like basically started buying up the block, uh, was were most of those you were owning just the business, or did you start buying the building behind that, and then kind of talk about like maybe how you already had a business mindset, but real
Mhm.
estate could be a little bit of a different animal. So kind of
Yeah.
going through that, where how did you scale your real estate portfolio on the side?
Yeah, so the way I got into real estate, guys, is I was sitting in the bar around 7 or 8 guys. It was attorneys, other restaurant owners, business owners, some people in politics, and they were talking about, hey guys, we should all put 5 grand in each, go buy this property, fix and flip it or rehab it, burr out of it.
Hmm.
And I had no idea what they were talking about. I was a newbie, no idea. I'm just like, hey, these guys are smarter than me, they're probably making more money than me. Sure. And so I went home that night, and I remember I just started doing research and researching all the topics. This was before, podcasts, bigger pockets, or any mentorship groups were out there, YouTube, Instagram. It wasn't even a thing. And I said, you know what? I'll go in with you guys. And when it came time to execute, everybody backed out.
Oh, damn.
Nobody was willing to. But I had already done the research, and I'm like, you know what? I'll just go for it. Worst case scenario is I fail. And so I went on Craigslist. It was the shoddiest deal. Now I know it was a wholesaler, and this guy luckily didn't take advantage of me. But I bought this house for like 25,000. I spent another 25,000 into it, so I was 50 grand in on my first one. It was in the wrong neighborhood. I mean, this is like an F neighborhood,
Mm.
man. And but it cash flowed. I bought it and it cash flowed. It paid $1,000 a month. So nowadays that's the 2% rule. It paid $1,000 a month, and I was like, man, this. I remember I got that first check, and I was like, man, this feels good. And I did it again. Same similar numbers, 25,000. And to me, I had the cash on the side, guys, but I did a line of credit, right? I didn't even use my own money. I did a line of credit, but 25,000, and spent another $25,000 in renovation, and it cash flowed again for $1,000. And so the building I was renting my restaurant in was an 8 unit building, including my restaurant. There were 2 commercial spaces and 6 apartments. And I told myself, if I ever buy this building, I'll be free. right? Because at that point, that building cash flowed about $10,000 a month,
Wow.
right? That's 120 grand a year. So at that point, I knew like, hey, look, if I can buy this building, I could, I don't really have to work anymore. I can kind of retire.
Yeah.
And eventually, I got that building. And that's kind of how the scaling started.
Wow. Okay. So when you said you using a line of credit, was that were you using a line of credit on the first one to get the second one, or was it on your primary, or where was it?
It was on my business.
Oh,
I was using the business line of credit, guys.
okay.
I don't know if it's the right thing at the time or the wrong thing, but I used a business line of credit. I had access to the funds. It had sat in the account as a line of credit. And I was like, man, I could just loan against this and I can pay it and then pay it back.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I did. And if I knew more about real estate before I got started, if I had mentors and I had those groups, I still own that property today,
Yeah.
right? Because that property, I mean, it was a cash cow at that point.
Okay. So you ended up selling that one and
Unfortunately, yeah. I
1031 out of
sold
it,
both
or
the two. I sold both the first two.
okay.
Yep.
Well, I mean, in an F neighborhood, is it still an F neighborhood, or has the area gotten a little bit better?
Um, no, it's about a C plus right now.
Okay.
C plus. Um, in a few years, that property I just saw it listed for like 160 something.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and it's a growing neighborhood. It's in Pittsburgh. If you guys are familiar, it's in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, home of the Steelers. It is a growing market. One of the top five, I think, it's supposed to be appreciating markets over the next 5 years.
Mm,
So, do I regret selling it? 100% now.
yeah. Have you done a lot of selling? I know you. I mean, when you've got 100 units plus, it means you've bought a lot and you haven't
Yeah.
sold a lot. So I'm assuming you probably haven't gotten rid of too many of your properties.
No, so I haven't sold. I've sold those two, and the only regret I have in my real estate portfolio was selling those two.
Yeah.
My only regret. Most of my properties have great debt on them, and they are most of them have like a great pay down amount too.
Hmm.
So for me to sell them, I'm just tapping into money, and at that point, I needed that money to purchase the bigger building.
Right.
I didn't do the 1031 because I didn't know what a 1031 was at the
Right.
time. I just took the loss, but um, now knowing what I know, I'm more informed, and it's a big help. But I knew that building, selling those two, helped me scale into the next building. So yes, it's a regret, but I just didn't know what I didn't know at that point.
Right. Yeah, it seems like no matter where you go and you listen to people talk on stage and mentorship groups, like anybody that's been around long enough, their regret always seems to be they wish they wouldn't have sold.
Yeah,
And there's things that come up, right? If like you need to take that money and buy another one, or finding a way to continue to scale. But yeah, if there's any way that you can hold the property, don't sell.
yeah. I had those properties clear and free, man. If I would have known, I would have did a cash out refi,
Mm, okay.
tapped into the equity, and then bought the next one.
Yeah,
I had no idea, and rates were dirt cheap then too. So, but it was a learning lesson, and I'm happy I learned it
for sure.
to be able to scale now.
So, having so many properties and so many, successful businesses with real estate as well, maybe talk a little bit about a time or an experience that you've had either on the real estate side or the business side where, you've had a just nightmare situation that you've had to overcome, or a tenant situation,
Sure.
because I'm sure it hasn't been all peaches and cream over the years.
No, no. And so every day is an issue, right? And I swear, every day there's something that comes up, especially if you guys are investing in real estate. Once you start to scale, something comes up every day. It's inevitable.
Hmm.
You'll have a good week or two good weeks, and then something big will happen. Um, but most of the failures are from lack of due diligence,
Mm,
right? Or not following the basic principles and rules that I've set for myself.
mm,
Um, One of the rules that I set was don't rent to friends and family,
mm.
right?
Yeah.
I have tenants who are late. Guess who those tenants are? Friends and family,
Yeah.
right? I have people that I had to evict, and guess what? I didn't do my due diligence on them,
Yeah.
right? So if I would have done the things that I know that I should have done, a lot of those failures are they're not inevitable. You can beat the system if you do your due diligence, but sometimes we get lax and we say, okay, well, I'll just let it happen. And now I have, try going to Thanksgiving dinner or having Thanksgiving with somebody you had to evict.
Mm, yeah.
Turkey don't taste the same,
Right.
So um, it is. There are hardships. One of the biggest ones. I mean, even due diligence wise, I didn't do a sewer scope for one of my properties. right? It was a great deal. I'm like, man, I can cash it on this deal. Didn't do a sewer scope, and there were tree roots in the sewer pipe.
Mm. Yep.
Luckily, we were able to do it ourselves. It only cost us about 10 to 12,000. This was a $30,000, $40,000 job.
Wow.
That's something that could wipe the average person out.
Yep.
I think the average American only has about what, $4,000 in savings.
If that, I think it's even
Maybe
lower.
it's 1,000
Yeah.
in savings and 4,000 maybe for an emergency.
Right. Right.
After 4,000, they're declaring bankruptcy. So, we were able to withstand that, and my properties have, like I said, great leverage. We make sure that we buy cash flow them correctly. But for some people, they might have sold the building.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Right. So, um, making sure you buy right, guys. Can't and do your due diligence.
When you say you were lucky that you were able to do that yourself, were you out there digging up that sewer line, or did you have?
I had, oh yeah, I get to work.
Okay.
I don't care how much money I have. I get to work. And if you guys follow me on Instagram
Yeah.
or you see me on Facebook or TikTok, I'll be out there working with my guys sometimes.
Okay.
Right. I have I do in-house property management at this scale. And I've noticed like a lot of the greats at this scale, once you get to like 100 doors or you have a lot of volume coming in, doing in-house property management is just a savings.
Right.
And so I do my own property management in-house, and then we have a maintenance team in-house.
Okay.
So the maintenance guys, they'll come in, they'll do it, and I had to call the plumber, to connect the pipes, etc. But yeah, I think I was out there a day with them, shoveling with them, getting busy with them, and I enjoy it though. I'll tell
Yeah.
you guys, listen, I enjoy it because it's a workout for me, and where I come from, it keeps me very humble
Right.
because it is very easy for me to slip and be like, I could just go do this or I could buy this, but this keeps me very humble and down to the ground. It was a mistake I made.
Mm-hmm.
Right, my maintenance guys didn't make the mistake in buying a property and not doing a sewer scope. It's a mistake I made. So that was a lesson for me, Ray. Next time you're gonna do a sewer scope, and you better believe every time after I have.
For sure. Yeah, I agree. I mean, you see a lot of people saying like, hands off, don't, hire a property manager as soon as you buy your first deal or whatever. But I actually really enjoy going out there, and that's one of the reasons I buy all my properties now within like a half hour of where I live, so I can drive by them. I'm actually able to, stop by on the weekend and see how things are looking, or, do some minor like landscaping or cleanup, whatever it is, mow the yard, just like get out there and do something to kind of make that place look better. And I take a lot of pride in, making sure my properties look good. So
Yeah, and here's the thing: like if you hire a property manager for the beginning, who's to tell you that what the property manager is saying is right or wrong?
yeah,
You, the manager of the asset, you have to manage your property manager,
yeah,
right? You have to manage your contractors. You have to manage the landscaping. If you're not happy with it, how do you know if you can't see the property, if your property manager is just telling you something? We had a property manager the other day say, "Hey, this 4-bedroom house you have will only rent for 1,400. I know better than that. On the market, it'll rent for 2,000.
yeah,
So those are the things you have to master, and just going out and finding a property manager is not very advantageous, especially on your first one or your second one, unless you're fully intertwined with your W-2. You can't afford the time.
right,
It just doesn't work. Or you make so much money from your W-2 that you can't put aside 20, 30 minutes to manage a property
mm-hmm.
a week or a month. But for the most part, it's great knowledge and it's great experience to learn and figure out these resources. Because a lot of property managers, I hate to say it, they'll take advantage of you.
Yeah,
A lot of contractors will take advantage of you.
mm-hmm.
Right? So you need to know, like, the lesson is you don't know what you don't know.
Right. With that in mind, a lot of people, there's a big debate around out of state investing, and especially with like the real estate prices the way they are now. But then also having to balance that with, of course, you can't manage a property that's out of state on your own, so you don't get some of those learnings, and it's more likely that you'd get taken advantage of on that end. Repairs are going to be probably more likely. Tenant relationship with the manager is going to be not as great. What's your take on like when you're for an early investor starting out, like getting their foot in the door, staying local or potentially going out of state?
If you just started, man, I always tell people stay. If you can't stay in your backyard, and if you can't find somebody that you can at least partner with, that's in that area, right? Because if again, you could be invested, and I'll tell you that the Pittsburgh story, that first house, when I bought that house, I looked at comps, right, and it said places in the area were going for 300,000, 400,000, right, and I'm like, man, I can buy this one at 25,000. I was on the wrong side of the street,
Okay.
right? That's how uninformed. And to the people listening, you guys know, like if you go to this side of the street, nobody really goes to that side. But if you're on this side, this is where all the development's happening.
Right.
I'm uber specific on you have to know your neighborhood.
Yep.
You know, you have to know if I ask you to invest in your neighborhood, you know your neighborhood better than I do, right?
For sure.
So I can pinpoint and look on Zillow or get a wholesaler to send me a deal, but I don't really know if that's the right neighborhood. Right?
Yeah.
The comps might not really be accurate because on this side or in this zip code, you know, and you're right on the borderline of the zip code,
Yeah.
and it could cost you major money.
Oh yeah.
So I advise if you can't invest in your backyard, if you can't find a deal, you don't have the capital, wholesale, fix and flip, do something until you get the capital, and then start investing.
Yeah, for sure. I agree, 100%. So, so with where you're at right now, you've got, hundreds of properties. You've got multiple businesses going. What are you working on right now that you're excited about, or kind of what's the next level for you in terms of your personal development and your growth as a business?
Um, so right now, real estate wise, we're just buying good deals,
Mhm.
right? That's always my key focus: buy good, make sure the deal's cash flow from the beginning. I host a free, free webinar on Tuesdays. I don't know if you've ever seen. I host a free webinar on Tuesdays. We just talk real estate. We bring a specialist from everywhere. I love to get you on too, Ian. If you want to come on one time,
Yeah, man, I'd love
um,
to.
we talk with specialists who are in the real estate industry doing the same thing, and more just networking, man, and learning. This is the thing about real estate is continued education. Always, there is always something to learn. There's always somebody doing it better than you. I might have 100 units, but we know guys that have maybe 1,000. You know,
Yeah,
so there's always and the thing is, what does it take to get from 100 to 1,000?
right,
What's the step you need? You know, if you have a net worth of 10 million, what does it take to get to 100 million? Those are the steps. So for me, my biggest thing is continued education, and continually finding new mentors, new people in the space, new educators in the space.
right. Who are you working with now that has inspiring you, kind of helping you get to that next level in your career or in your business?
Well, we know Thatch. Thatch has been a great influence. I stay in tune with what he's doing with Springboard, and shout out
Yeah,
to the Springboard.
yeah,
Um, right now, I'm working closely in a community of people. There are some bigger names in my community that have that 1,000 doors,
mm,
um, and they've done exceedingly well.
yeah,
And so I'm working with them, trying to figure out, okay, what's the next step? Where should I be developing? What am I missing in my portfolio to do it? And the thing is, and the people listening, you don't need 100 doors. You don't need 1,000 doors. 10, 20, 30 doors. For some people, five might be the number for them.
yep,
Five paid off might be enough to be free for you. Um, but at this point in my career, I'm still in somewhat of accumulation. If I can find a good deal, I'll buy it.
right,
And and so that's what I'm looking for right now is just now finding better deals. If I have some C's, I have B's and A's in my portfolio. Um, but now I'm trying to transition some of the C's to B's, and making sure that capex and things are being done just to maintain the properties.
right.
So that's what we're all talking about in my area of real estate.
Okay. And are you looking at like large multifamily deals, single family, just as
Yeah.
deals in general?
So I do not like the whole single family Like it's very controversial, but I don't like the whole single family deals in my portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
I will fix and flip a single family. It's just not beneficial to hold it for me in my portfolio here.
Right.
I'm working on more multifamily, so 3, 4 units and above, usually 4 units and above.
Mm-hmm.
And right now we're doing a development on a 12 unit building.
Okay. So new construction, 12 unit.
New construction 12 unit, and it's actually amazing because going back to my story, we're actually going to use it for affordable housing, and we're working with the coalition to end homelessness, and we'll be helping house people who are facing homelessness. And homelessness has a different definition, just somebody on the street. It could
Yeah.
be house overcrowding in a house, so it might be too many people in the house. It could be a wife facing domestic dispute, a mother facing domestic dispute. So we're working with Coalition to End Homelessness to help build sustainable housing and affordable housing in the community. And this is also being built with grant money.
Wow.
So
Okay.
yeah, so this is a 100% free project.
Okay. And that'll be fully for the underserved community, and you'll hold that. Is that going to be like a partnership that you hold, kind of like, you see the Sounders and the Rave Foundation, or will that be kind of donate it at the end, or kind of how are you going to structure that?
So this is something that is held in my portfolio.
Okay.
I am the developer, and so I will get the development fee, and then I will hold this in my portfolio,
Okay.
and then it'll net to me. So a lot of these people will be paid with like a HUD or Section 8
Right.
program of that sort,
Mm-hmm.
and we're getting them into a from pretty much a lot of them are coming in from D and C minus neighborhoods, get them into a B plus neighborhood,
Right.
right?
Yeah. And you hold.
So that gives them jobs, access to transportation, grocery stores, and so this helps develop the community in a large way.
Right. And you owning and managing that property will make sure that it stays that way, right? It'll stay for the community and for people that need it the most.
Correct. Correct.
So I read an article in I think it was the Morgantown or West Virginia News, and a quote that you had really struck out to me that I'd like to ask you about.
Sure.
You said, I would always encourage people to shop locally and shop small because those are the people that are going to invest back into the community. I look at it as every dollar that I gain is a dollar I reinvest back into the community. You just talked a little bit about why that's important to you.
I said that.
No, this
no,
guy's smart.
no, no.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah,
it's super important to invest locally. Look, when we send money to other places, that money's gone, right? That community never sees the money. So when you work with local banks, I think a lot of local banks here, I think 90% of the money that they take in is reinvested back into the community,
yeah,
right? And it's linked back out to the community. So keeping your money local helps you build your community. If I go shop at a local boutique, it might be a little bit pricier, but if I shop at that boutique employs people,
yeah,
right? The employees need what? They need housing, right? It circles back around. So you shopping local. If I can help people get housing, if I can help people find jobs, create careers, it's all a big circle in building your community. And I strongly believe people should shop local when available. And sometimes local comes with an extra price. I get it, but understand that you're building your community when you do shop local.
for sure. I love that. I mean, people often ask, like, you've made it. They don't ask me, but they often ask people, like, you see on social media, like, successful people, and they're like, why are you on social media, or why are you doing this, and why don't you just go off in an island and just enjoy your money. But, like, you clearly have a passion for your community. It comes from a deep rooted history of what you've been through, and why it's so important those resources were available for you and your family. And just kind of, like, people overlook that we all have different whys and different visions and different reasons for why we continue to want to grow. It's not like you just make a bunch of money and quit, right? Like, there's everybody's got reasons. So I would urge those people that are leaving those comments and think that that's really the end game to kind of think a little bit deeper of why it's important that successful people do give back and do continue to grow.
Here's something I want to share with your audience too.
Yeah.
So after I got that first building, I had some other assets. I was making enough money. I was retired. Like, I was done. The bars and restaurants, none of that stuff mattered. I was making enough passive income off real estate. And I remember I got really depressed, right? Because I'm like, I think I was like 29 or like something around that age. I'm like, I got enough money to live. What's next? Like, what's the point? Like, I can travel. I've traveled a ton.
Yeah.
I can party all the time. I can do what I want. But, like, what's next?
Yeah.
And I remember telling my cousin, because I was super depressed, man. I'm like, man, this is boring. Like, life is boring now. Like,
Yeah.
I've hit the financial goals. And he told me, he said, Ray, you're being selfish. And I said, what do you mean? He said, look, you've opened the door and you're good. But is your family good? Right? Are your kids going to be good? Are your kids good? Are the people around you good? Right? You have an opportunity to continue to grow and scale and help not just you, but impact other people, right? Impact people in the community. Give back more. He said, you're thinking too small. If you're good, go give some more to some other people and help them be good.
Mm.
Right? And that changed my life
Yeah.
of, like, I'm just not giving enough then.
Right.
I have a unique opportunity to help scale. And for me, it was personal of, like, I want to scale and I want to grow my portfolio. And then it became, you know what? I want to help the community and build back the community. And of course, it'll help me in grow my portfolio, but I'm also giving people an opportunity that I didn't have when I was young.
Right.
And the buildings that we're building now, and with this grant program, we're going to be doing empowerment goals. So we'll teach financial literacy in those buildings.
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
They'll have meeting spaces to learn. So we're giving them and helping equip them with the tools, things that we never had growing up. Hopefully, I can now help people.
I love that, man. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So you also do, you do some coaching. What kind of coaching, like what's your philosophy and kind of what do you guys how do you structure your coaching program and your
So right now we do, like I mentioned, we do a 12. We do a Tuesday call every Tuesday. It's a free call. We just talk real estate. Getting around like-minded people is a game changer,
Mhm.
right? And another thing I felt like depressed about was that I wasn't around people that would inspire me.
Mm,
So you want to be around people that inspire you. Ian, you inspire me. We're in Thatcher's group. Thatcher's inspiring people that inspire, the people that continue to push you forward, make you better. Right? We all have our own stories that inspire people in their own ways. People might be inspired from this, but you need to put yourself around those people. Listening to podcasts. Getting in the room with these people is so important.
yeah.
So I think that's a big point of it. Go ahead, ask that question again because I want to make sure I answer the whole
Yeah,
part.
yeah. No, I was just curious about your coaching program, how people can get, get more from you because I'm sure people are going to hear this and just want to, get more information.
If they want Tuesday is totally free. Costs you $0 and 0 cents.
Yeah.
Don't right now. Don't pay me for anything. Just come get free knowledge.
Wow.
Right? Tuesday every Tuesday 6:30 is 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. 100% free. We just talk real estate. We bring on specialists in the area. We talk to people from all the way in Washington, people all the way in New York. Um, whether it be CPAs, contractors, we're talking to them all. So we're here to give value, and I'll learn when I'm in those groups.
Right.
Deals get done in those groups as well. We have anybody from private money lenders that hop on, people who are looking to invest out of state in their state. So it's just a great network, and networking is key.
For sure. So we're about time, but before I let you go, uh, gotta ask you personally, why, Ray, do you love real estate?
So if you ever see me, I always have a freedom shirt on most of the time, and it's the freedom that is granted me, right? The freedom to go to a restaurant and not have to look at the prices, right? It's those small freedoms, the freedom of not having to worry about if my mortgage is going to be paid, right? Those are some of the things that in some of our lifestyles we take for granted. But for somebody listening to this right now, they may have to make a sacrifice of what they're going to eat, or if they're going to eat or put gas in their car to get to work the next week, right?
Yeah.
These are strong freedoms that people right now are facing every day, every week when they get their paycheck, whether they can pay their student loans. So it's afforded me the freedom of not having to worry about finances. It's afforded me the freedom of time,
Right.
right? Being able to spend time with my kids, travel, drop on a dime. As we're recording this, we're in the middle of the day recording this.
Yeah.
The average person doesn't really have that freedom, and after this, I'm going on a trip. I have that freedom. So
Love it.
it's amazing. I love what real estate has done. I love being able to get back to the community as well.
I love it. It's powerful stuff, man. You've you've really done a lot and accomplished a lot in a short amount of time, and I can't wait to see what you do next.
Appreciate it.
So, for our viewers, listeners, what's the best way to follow you, find more information from you, and kind of just stay connected as you kind of go on that next leg in your journey?
Just you can find me on Instagram at Ray Glymph, RayGlymph. And if you follow me, just send me a DM. I'll follow you back. I love to to connect with everybody. I love to build that network. So I love to follow you guys, hear about your stories, and see your accomplishments as well. I follow everybody. I love seeing real estate. I love seeing people's families and learning about different cultures. So connect with me there.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, we'll let you go. Thank you so much, Ray, for being here today. And can't wait to link with you again. Talk to you later.
Thanks for having me.
All right, man. Peace.